And that's it. How's everybody doing? We're live from Jason's basement and Fabio's hotel room. It looks like you're in a hotel room. It looks like you're in a hotel room without, all your stuff behind you. But
this is a really weird setting for me. There is basically nothing around me apart from that black couch behind me, which we bought used from a guy that used to do castings.
Okay, that's nice. This is a kids show, Fabio. Oh wait, never mind. We turned off. It's not for kids. It's not made for kids. We already turned that off. No problem. Yeah, we
lost the monetization.
It's great to be here. We're gonna have Nigel on in just a couple of minutes, but first, I saw something cool recently in the news. We're gonna talk about that for a second. I don't know. I'm sure people have heard of like light fields, this kind of technology from Google back in the day. But they've been doing a lot of work on it, and they've released some more information about this thing. Hold on, let's see if I can pull this up. It's actually pretty interesting, like the leaps they've taken forward with this stuff, because it's like now you have this 6 degrees of freedom, like it's from a specific point, but it's pretty cool because it's like it kind of does go around objects and things like that. And they have these, let's see if this actually this video is there. Now let's see if it'll play. So you can kind of, like, the idea is that you could use this in a headset and things like that. And when you're standing in a point and you look around, it actually feels like you're into three-dimensional space, as opposed to just a static video that you're looking around in with no depth, perception. And you can kind of see they have this depth and alpha view that you can see, which is kind of crazy because it shows you what's going on. I think what from the paper, what I read a little bit, what they've improved here is like this atmospheric effects, like the flames. It even works with like these flames, and like there was another one with sparks, like this video here was with sparks flying and stuff like that, and it still works with all of these things. And it's pretty crazy when you think about it, because it's like it's really
incredible.
They're capturing the reality a little better for this kind of like recreation of space and depth, but yeah, go check it out. I'll put the link in the description afterwards. But yeah, it was a technical paper done for SIGGRAPH, I believe. So let's bring Nigel on. Are you ready, Fabio? Do you have anything to say? Did you see anything cool this week?
Not really, to be honest. I was very busy with the moving.
Yeah.
We had to pack 98 boxes, and it's crazy. Like, I don't even know how we managed to accumulate so much stuff. Like, when we left Austria to go to Tel Aviv, we had like 20 boxes, and now we have like 98. It makes no sense to me. But anyway, and so I was a little bit away from everything, also from the challenges a little bit. Thank God, we managed to put on the latest challenge. People are doing it. They're having a lot of fun. This week, the 3 winners, they will get a pro plan from Jeff's Mottle new website, CG Architect. And so, I guess that things will be interesting next Monday. We'll see how it goes. But that's the reason why you hear an echo.
Yeah.
It's because there is nothing around me.
Fabio's sitting in an empty room, with only a couch.
Yes.
Okay, so let's bring Nigel on. Nigel, hold on, I'm bringing you on now. Are you ready?
Let's
You're on, buddy.
do no introduction. Let's do no introduction for Nigel.
Just don't introduce me. It's just I've just been sitting here in this little. I don't even know if I'm on or not. I'm
You're
sitting
on.
in a little darkened room. I'm going. What are you talking about light field technology for? You haven't even mentioned the size of the files there. You need to have like Amazon storage space to render, or even just to use like 30 seconds of well, if you're doing light field film, absolutely. It's just
the rig for capturing it is pretty funny too, because they show this rig which has like 96
Very
cameras
portable.
on a semi-concave surface that are connected all together, and it says it's using what does it say? Using some simple sport cameras, meaning like GoPros or whatever. To make it an inexpensive setup. They've got like 100 of these cameras. I mean, it's inexpensive, right? Like it's like 40 grand.
Yeah, but you know that's when Nokia came out with their 360 dome thing, that was like 60 grand.
Yeah,
and it just lasted a year or so, and it's technology. People have got to be pushing it the whole time.
Yeah,
and Lightfield's been around a while. We started exploring it, I'd say, 8 to 10 years ago, when we got all excited about it, especially from deep compositing and looking at it from that side of things. And then I went, hang on a sec, I haven't got massive shareholders to actually afford the huge storage capacity. So let's just back off and go simple.
Yeah. No, it's I'm sure that's a huge problem, but I guess I see it. It's kind of one of these future-looking technologies, which can be, they can learn things there that they will, integrate into other things down the road, and so eventually it'll be kind of an interesting way to see what happens with that technology later on. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves right now because, as we always do, we have 5 questions for Nigel to answer. We like to do this right at the beginning, so that we have something to talk about if the conversation is fading. Right, Nigel?
But I guess it won't.
It won't, because Nigel, we've had a little chat beforehand. We've got some really good stuff to talk about. But first, we're going to do this. Fabio, you got the questions ready?
Yes. Listen, so this is basically our little tradition. We ask our guests 5 simple, either one or the other question, just to get to know them a little bit. And I have 5 questions for you, which I think are going to be interesting and certainly will get us talking. The only question now is, are you ready?
Go for it.
All right. So Nigel, 3, 2, 1, Netflix or HBO?
No, that's interesting. Does this have to be a quick yes or no?
Either one or the other.
HBO or Netflix. Can't make up my mind. Netflix.
Office in... So it's HBO or Netflix?
He said Netflix.
I have to stick with one. I could talk for half an hour on the subject. Hang on.
All right. Next question. Office in an old warehouse or modern office?
Old warehouse.
Marmite or Vegemite?
Now, again, I split down the middle on that one.
All right. The Earth is flat or 5G gives you corona?
You have a stupid question. I'll go for the second one just to move on.
Cine or cyanide?
That's a good one. So what do you think it is? Shall I tell the story behind the name?
I know. I think I know what it is, but Sinai.
Hold on, I have to open for my dog.
The company was formed by Simon and Nigel, and it was the first syllable of our names, Sinai. And we thought, man, that's the easiest thing for people to remember. But two things. One, we found out it was one of the really, really common woman's name in India, and that's Sini. And then second, we found out that both Simon and Nigel are two of the rarest names in the USA. So nobody even knows that. I mean, I thought Simon, there'd be a few Simons over there, but no. So we picked a really, really crazy name, and I have to go around saying, like the Sinai Desert. But then they'll go, where's the A? And I was like, oh, forget about it. So anyway, there's your 5 questions.
From now on, when people have a doubt, we will redirect them to the video, and then they'll be able to understand the reasoning behind it. Exactly. But anyway, Nigel, I have a very simple, generic questions just to get the conversation going. If it's okay for Jason, I would like to ask it.
It's okay with me.
All right. So,
great.
You know how artists and people working in the field of 3D are, right? So, have you ever been arrested or detained by the police for drug trafficking and possibly terrorism?
Not terrorism, but okay, we're going to go straight into that story. So where to start? So yes is the answer to that one. I have been banned from the USA. Now, it has caused problems over the years with doing work in the States, and it's been quite interesting actually. I'll tell you the short version of the story. So it was about 12, maybe 15 years ago. My wife and I were traveling back to New Zealand from the UK, where we're living. And we're traveling through the US. We got to LAX. We were in transit. This is just after Homeland Securities had come about. Jason, 2007 or something, around that time. Anyway.
They
got through. Went to customs, did the whole fingerprint. They said, "Sir, do you want to come with us?" Okay, here we go. And they take me into the customs rooms, and they basically, an officer, they said, sit down, calls me up, says, have you ever been or are you currently an international drug trafficker? Now me, being slightly tired at the time and also slightly sarcastic, went, oh, you've got me. And of course that went down a real treat with the young officers. They thought we've got this one. Anyway, so we say the processing went on for about 2 hours. I had started with one officer, ended with 8. They're all young, hungry, guns, the whole lot, until this senior officer came along and said, because they were asking me, have you been in prison for drugs in Bangkok? And I said, well, they kill you in Bangkok. It's like, what? Who are you looking at on that screen? And the senior officer came along and he went, look, there's obviously a mistake here. Look, but I advise you not to come back to the US because you'll be arrested on the spot and no questions asked, you'll be put in prison. And so the huge document that I had to, all the questions had to be signed, that had to then, remember, I'm in transit to go to Fiji on the way back to New Zealand to go to a wedding. It was wintertime, Southern Hemisphere, it was summertime, so all my winter clothes are in my suitcase. So everything gets faxed to both the FBI and Homeland Security. The plane is now almost ready to, lose its takeoff spot. And so basically they said, right, you can actually proceed through, because they were going to kick me out of the country, send me back to the UK. They marched me. I got marched through transit with 2 armed officers with machine guns on either side of me. And this is the days before social media really kicked off, because I would have gone viral. I mean, here was this young, angry, exhausted because I've been working so much, looking guy being marched with his wife 10 meters behind, going, I cannot believe how embarrassing this is. Maybe they thought you were
somebody really important.
No, it
didn't look like that.
The rubbernecking, Anyway, they marched me onto the plane in front of all of the passengers, then and basically handed my passport, my flight documents to the cabin crew and said, in sort of authoritarian voices, that this guy cannot have his documents till this plane has left American airspace. And of course, I was boiling with anger and sat down. The woman next to me said, I can't sit next to this person. I, of course, lost the plot, got angry, and ended up with 3 seats, which is perfect. I could stretch out. Arrived in Fiji. Of course, my baggage hadn't arrived. So I was the loser in the hotel shorts and T-shirt and hat. And that was all those years ago, until last year at Total Chaos. I was telling the more sort of drunken version of that story to a bunch of people we were having dinner with. And one of the people was Belle van der Woodsen, who I think you mentioned last week on the show, or you were talking.
Yeah, we did with Brett.
Yeah, so she didn't quite believe me, and I got up to go to loo, and came back, and she passed me a phone, and said, "Look what I've found," and she, in that short time, had done a quick bit of internet research and found a Nigel Hunt who was in prison somewhere else in the UK, who at that time had been on the run as a drug trafficker. Didn't look. I was so pissed off because he looked nothing like me, and yet he's behind bars. So that was the end of the story.
I gotta Google this guy too.
Oh yeah. Look up Nigel Hunt. I think it's Royston Prison. Yeah, I had it on the other screen. I would have shared it.
Hey, Nigel, can you do me a favor? I know this is like a little bit of a getting off the subject. Can you move to your left a little bit? You're kind of on the edge of the camera. Yeah, beautiful. That's it. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And now everyone's going to be super happy because you don't go off the screen.
No, it's just Fabio's old school and made me go 4:3 when I was 16:9, and I would have preferred even wider cinematograph sort of.
Yeah, like 2.7 to 2.7 to 1 or something, or what do you mean?
Yeah,
the old style, old school.
So anyway, I suppose the takeaway from that story is community, and it's because for age, I mean, you could imagine how many years I've sort of thought, because I've gone to immigration lawyers, nothing's happened, because I need to get back to the States. It's great, fantastic companies, great people, but there's no way I'm stepping foot on those grounds in this current situation. Or if they think I'm an international drug trafficker.
So you really can't go to the U.S. right now, or what?
No.
You can't. You can't, even if you took your phone ready and said, "Look, there's the guy. They got him. Here it is. Here's the information you need."
Let me ask either of you: would you risk it with that orange gorilla in charge, and the way they're treating, their immigration policy? I think
I would not go, Nigel. I know I'm making light of it a little bit. I would not go because I saw the effect of how they treat even American citizens when you go back. I have lived in Europe for quite some time now, almost 18 years. 17 years at least. And once when I went back, they literally were asking me like where I was going, and I was like, "What are you talking about? I just gave you my U.S. passport. What do you mean? Where am I going? I'm going to." No, they're like, "We need to know where you're going." I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to visit my family." And they're like, "No, where is that?" And I was like, "You got to be kidding me! You can. I mean, what is this? What is this line of questioning?" And then they asked me questions like, "Why have you been living in Austria for so long?" Stuff like that. It's like, I mean, they're allowed to do that as well, though.
Do you feel more European now after living in Europe for so long than you do a US citizen?
Not really. I mean, I still feel like a US citizen, but I actually get.
But
what do you mean, though?
No, in terms of what do you call home?
Oh yeah, here.
Where's home?
Definitely here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's easy.
We don't know. With Fabio, we don't know because he moves around quite a lot. So Fabio, where's home?
Vienna.
Home is
But
where
how
the
long
heart
is it
is.
since you've?
Yeah.
How long is it since you've lived there?
It's been 2.5 years, 3 years soon that I've left. It's not that long, but now we're moving to Switzerland.
I moved to the UK from New Zealand in 1992. We were only supposed to take. We're on a world trip. We'd been in the US for like 6 months, and we were supposed to be here for 2 weeks. And thinking, oh, we don't want to stay in the UK. There's nothing there. We're on our way to Europe. My wife and I, we both wanted to spend more time in Italy, and we got here, and it was May 1992, and it was like it is today. It was gorgeous, hot and sunny. We hadn't quite expected the, if you like, the big city vibe. And so we ended up spending all our money on going out, having a good time, going to raves, going to parties, going clubbing, and then we went. You know, we were waiting for our friends to come from the US to join us to go off to Europe. By the time they arrived, we had to get work, and one thing led to another. And almost 30 years later, we're still here.
And do you have any family in London or anything? Like,
what sort of family? Relatives?
No, I mean, like, did you have any connections to London at that time? Because
no,
yeah, because I think yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, well, to sort of bring it back to the whole work thing, I come from my father's an architect. My auntie and uncles are architects and engineers, and my dad was quite connected with some architects in the UK. So, of course, I thought naively that, you know, I'd be able to arrive, I'd be able to just pick up the phone, get a job, all would be great. No, it was a massive, massive recession. And I remember I just, as a young Kiwi, I just applied for anything. This is days before the internet, so you'd have to actually get the newspaper and go through that looking for jobs or write to people and then wait a week and phone them up.
Yeah.
And I remember calling up this one architect who almost screamed with laughter at me, saying, do you know, look, young Kiwi boy, do you know how many people applied for that job? And I was like, no. And they said there was about 2,000 people applied for it. What makes you think that, you know, you're any better than someone who's got like 30, 40 years on the job? I didn't have an answer, but also I didn't have computer skills. And
what year was that?
That was 92. I'd been using the computer. It was 92. So I first started using AutoCAD at uni in 1989. And it was just as I was sort of leaving, and they had this module come in, this sort of CAD drafting. And we just thought, this is a load of rubbish. This computer tech, this CAD stuff will never take off. And so I didn't really pursue it. But I pursued in my other activities, because I was also running dance parties and raves, and as I was a DJ as well. So, yeah, I've always managed to be doing more than one thing at once. It's in my DNA to, I think, as I said before, if idle hands, it's just, that's not me. So I've got to be doing multiple things. So, yeah, whilst working as a young architect, I was also putting on parties, which led to bigger and bigger ones, which led to basically, that's why we came to the UK, because of the whole, at the time, the rave generation. And that's what I was doing in New Zealand. So I wanted to come and check it out. And then the whole 90s was taken up with basically the circuit. going clubbing, going.
So
it's fun.
I have a question for you that Brett Fisher actually asked. Do you know Brett?
Oh, there's actually people watching us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one person watching. No, I'm just kidding. There's more than one.
All right.
Mike's there. Juan, Aman, a few other people.
Give me the
really
question.
Nice. So, do you know Brett though? Do you know Brett Fisher?
No, I don't think.
Anyway, he wanted to know because we asked him last week. Do you always have at least one pint of beer in the airport? If you're going if you're going somewhere in the airport, do you drink a pint of beer? Is it like a necessary requirement?
Well, and let's stay on the drink thing. I'm a charlatan when it comes to drinking. People when I've come to D2, the answer would be no to Brett's question. But people often think, are you smashed or something? And it's just that. And I don't know how it's probably the same with you guys when you're organizing D2, you're just running around like crazy, organizing, you don't have time to drink. So when I was there last year and I was trying to get in to watch some of the presenters, and I essentially got talking to someone for 3 hours outside, and literally at the entrance, I didn't even move 5 meters. I kept going, look, I just got to go and
Yeah.
chat. So literally there would be, I'd say, I had maybe all afternoon at D2, maybe 2, maybe 3 drinks just to cool down. But I'm not a big drinker.
Well, I also don't drink I usually don't drink in the airport because it's, I don't know. I don't usually do it. Brett and Mark I said Mark. Hey Mark, what's up? Brett and Mike would highly disagree with this attitude, but
I 100% agree with them. But wait till they get to my age and your bladder starts going and you have to go peeing all the time. It's like
that's it, Nigel. That's it. That's the thing. That's right.
I love how this conversation is going.
Well, you want.
So anyway, how's your prostate? No, okay, let's go.
Well, let's stay. I hope everyone has a checkup each year.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be the public service announcement for today.
Well, no, when I first got made to go and do mine, I was horrified. I was like, oh my God, and I hadn't met my doctor before. And so Dr. Curran, and I was thinking, oh my God, Dr. Curran's going to be 6'3" with enormous hands. And it was just like, this is going to be
that finger's going to go deep.
Yeah. I walk in the door, and Dr. Curran was about a 5-foot, sweet, lovely woman doctor, tiny hands, and it was all fine. And each year, I highly recommend, let's face it, that there's the gentleman now.
So if you're going to...
Definitely check out your doctor before having to go in and do your prostate exam.
These are good tips, huh?
Yeah, there you go.
That's actually a very good point. I didn't think of it myself.
True, totally.
A person like Shaquille O'Neal could never do that.
Just don't know, Some people might get off on that.
They can wrap around the basketball.
I mean, I suppose it might be helpful with. Let's see how to put this in the best way. Maybe you would need Shaquille if somebody had certain physiological conditions, like long. I don't know. Anyway, where you need something long. I don't know. That's long fingers. All right.
I have no idea where you're going with that one.
Let's just change topic.
Right, next question. Fire another question.
Nigel, I want to ask you, have you ever been in a position where you were the boss working on a project and you were leading a team, and then the work that you were making yourself sucked, whilst the work that your team or the people that hired was actually good, and people were you were looking at them thinking, God damn it, my work is sucking, theirs is good. What am I doing wrong?
That
we
is
had
the
this
base.
conversation.
that is the basis of every business. If you're not hiring people who are better than you over and over again, then you're not doing it right. I'm
totally with you. But were you ever in a psychological position where you were like, ah, God damn it, my work sucks?
Which I'm trying to remember which story that. So yeah, it does happen quite often, and I'm fine with it. I just get a little annoyed. There was one time when I went to a client review, and we'd done like 15, maybe 20 images and 360 panoramas and stuff, and you know, the client and all the stakeholders, they're all like, yeah, these are great, this is good. But if we could be critical, there is one image that, you know, that it's just not up to scratch. And okay, show me. It was the one I'd done, and it was like, yeah, every other one was great. I mean, that's why you own companies, right? But I felt personally insulted. Of course, I didn't say, "Oh, I did that," but it's just that's not my skill set anymore. You'll see from when the magazine comes out next week. I have actually done the tutorial in the magazine. And so when I shared it with one of the contributors who might be watching, I showed him some images, and instantly he came back he came back with a lot of critiques, and I went, you sound like an architect. And I was like, this is meant to be a tutorial just to show people how to use the plugins, not create a beautiful looking image. I should have put that out to a competition.
Yeah, I mean,
did that answer your question?
What was the question?
Okay.
The question
whether I'm crap at 3D or not.
Yeah. No. Like, if it was ever,
that's a good point. It was back in when I employed my first person. In when it was 98, 97 or 98. I'd started my company in 95 and just slowly built up client base. And so when I employed my first person, I got myself a 3D person so I could concentrate on doing the 2D. And then I've sort of remained in the 2D hemisphere ever since. So when I come to the things like D2 and you start advising me on which 3D program is better, it's like, I 100% agree. I don't care what 3D software someone uses. It's the end result.
I never recommend anyone to use any software.
No, I mean, software's software. It's a bit like we could be sitting around talking about cars and which car's better with what engine, exactly, and what tire. Who cares? It's the driver that matters.
And also, like, to a certain extent, you know, when you're playing with the high end of, say, BMW, Mercedes, and Audi, what is really the difference between the three? You know, it's like what people want them to be, right? Because somebody will say, oh, Audi is so much better. Or somebody else will say, no, you're crazy, you're out of your mind, Mercedes is the best. And somebody else will be like, no, you're stupid, BMW is the best. I've seen people doing crazy stuff with Blender, and it's a free software. I've seen people with years of experience using 3ds Max doing crap work.
So, you know, I was going to say my example of the cars is much more, you know, down to earth because I'm coming from the South. I grew up in Arkansas, you know. So there, what people argue over is what's a better truck, Ford or Chevy? And they go so far even as to put pictures of Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes, like stickers, peeing on the other logo on their truck. Like if you have a Ford, then you put Calvin peeing on a Chevy logo and the other way around. So it's, for me, it's just like an extension of nationalism, right? I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah. That is it. It's people get off on that stuff.
Yeah. You got to have a team, right? Whose team are you on?
Well, yeah. Well, I think we could talk teams. We could talk tribalism. Now, one of the things that I suppose here's a question for us, that when did we first met at D2, right? When I came to D2, probably 3 years ago, after, I mean, why did I come? You could ask. That after being so many years in the industry, I was coming to check you out. I was a spy on the ground. I stood at the back.
Didn't we meet at the SOA maybe? Because I think I met you there.
Oh, maybe
the first time. I was there once, and I met you, I think, then, and then we were talking about it, and then you came to the D2. So and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to throw that in there.
That I was going down the route of I'd heard good things, and talking of the whole tribalism thing. There were so many people in, say, the London community who it was D2 is always on the agenda. And SOA, it's that, if you like, the mecca of we have to go there each year. And I was like, what is this all about? Why are all these younger people going to D2 every year? And because that's running my company for 20 years, that we were always too busy. And I'd never considered that from a recruitment side of it, from a networking side, we thought we had it all covered. And I think that the game changed, and you both and other people were fundamental to making that change and bringing people together. So I came along to spy. I stood at the back. I was suitably impressed. Nobody knew who I was, which was amusing, apart from Fabio kept making little remarks. And here we are. I think after seeing the global industry grow from when I started in the early 1990s to what it is now, and the if you like, the tribalism of, it seems everyone knows each other, and which is a good thing from a networking point of view. And I think not from a support network side of things, because in the next year or two, we're going to need it.
Yeah.
And I think what I would like to see from people is a bit less selfishness and self-focused, and actually try to help other people. Because I have to move over. I just realized I'd slid across and I was sliding off the screen. I'm a Kiwi. I'm just naturally leaning towards the southern hemisphere. But it's, yeah. Let's see what the next 12 months brings for all of us.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm most proud of from the D2 is like all the stories I've heard of people who met another person there through networking and was able to either get work, or some cooperation with someone. This for me is it's the whole reason that we're doing it, and why it's so important that people should do it. Go to an event, and not just any event. I mean, I'm being very selfish here, but they should go to the D2. I mean, they shouldn't. I mean, this is the place if you want to meet people. And I feel like the environment is just perfectly set for that. That's exactly what the environment's set up for. And we actually don't market it enough that way. Honestly, I think we should do more because that's what it is.
So 100% agree. And I agree with the whole ethos behind it. But Brexit's going to become a problem at the end of this year with recruiting people from Europe in the UK.
I know.
Which is, it's across the whole creative industries. It's a disaster. But I'm sure we'll work it out. But in Soho and VFX, 60%, 50% of people are from Europe.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really ridiculous situation to be put in, just because a bunch of, how do we not put this in a nice way?
What?
People voted to separate themselves.
Bureaucrats.
Yeah. Yeah, but also the people who are nationalists, essentially, basically. Again, here we go again. It's like the same shit again.
Do you see yourself? I mean, all three of us are living in foreign country or different countries to where we grew up. Do you see yourself as an international citizen and without borders? I mean, I personally do. I would love to, and think I could work in any country in the world and respect that culture, because I'm that sort of person who just absorbs the culture I go to, which I kind of think that's how animation and VFX industry has worked, and it's to some extent it's happening in ArcViz, that people are able to travel around the world and go from studio to studio, and that, well, I'm seeing more of that now, especially on Facebook. People are traveling, enjoying themselves.
Yeah, no, I would say I feel much more. I feel totally international, because people always ask me if I'm an Austrian citizen, but I'm not doing this because I would lose my U.S. citizenship. I don't actually want to give up the U.S. citizenship. I mean, there have been moments, of course, over the last 3 years, but
that's another conversation.
But this is, but I, on the other hand, I also feel like that would be like an easy way to run away from it, and I think that things need to change there, and the only way you can change it is if you put pressure on people, and you can't do that if you're not a citizen, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I guess for me, this whole problem is like protectionism. This is what they're doing. They're like, everybody's afraid that things are getting taken away from them, or I don't know. The politicians are putting fear into people, and they're trying to act like they're protecting people, but they're not really. I mean, in the end.
Shall I tell you a story of that in the ArcViz world, going back in time? So my studio, Glowfrog, was one of a select few studios to work on the 2012 Olympics, and we were doing the if you like, the non-glamorous, the sort of the athletes' village and the Westfield, all the retail side of it. We weren't working on fancy stadiums, and that was being done by Squint and Uniform, but so we're a team. I don't know. There was 15 of us and working on it, and it was ongoing work for 8 years or so. And we, people were getting married in our office. People were buying houses. We were supporting the local economy, and we got wind that this company from China, who had done the graphic. I don't know if I'm allowed to say their name. They'd done the graphics for the Beijing Olympics, had come to London.
It's only one company anyway.
Yeah. Well, you know who I'm talking about.
Of course.
Yeah. They'd come to London, and they'd basically gone to the organizers and tried to bribe them with opening up a suitcase with £1.5 million in it to say, we want to do the visualization work for 2012 Olympics. And of course,
but this is a story that it's out there. I mean, many people know it.
Oh, good.
It's not a secret. I mean, the rumor is there.
But that I'm sure that happens today. They went away, and then they came back, and they sponsored the Olympics as a third-tier sponsor for £15 million, so that they could get their name on the ticket. And it worked for a while, but we were horrified. We'd written to the papers. Back to your protectionism, how this started. We were saying this is crazy, because the British government had actually paid for the studio to set up in the UK. They were just shipping work back off to China, and we're like, this can't happen. But at the end of the day, our local industry continued to grow, and companies like that disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
it's a marathon.
Go ahead.
How do you see the future of this industry, say, 10 years from now?
What industry?
Archivist.
Okay, we'll stick to ArcViz.
Well, you know,
different.
we're mainly connected to an archivist crowd, but you and I have had this conversation.
No. 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
If we look, let's go back and let's talk about 2010, and talk about if you can remember what was happening back in 2010. We had Alex Roman, who had rocked the world with his film, and that at the time I was working with the BBC, and everybody was like that. They were saying, "Oh, we have to have visual effects and shots that look like this film," and I said, "Well, on your sort of budget, that's impossible to do." But they were going, "But if this one guy can do it, then you and your team can do it, you know, for a fraction of the cost." It didn't work, and as we know, that was exceptional work 10 years ago. Now that's.
But it took the guy 3 years to do it.
Exactly.
Or a year, but that doesn't matter. It's not the point. That the time is never the point. It's the delivery and what you've delivered that becomes the benchmark for the next.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that was the benchmark that set the last 10 years. Now, at the end of those 10 years, look at your challenge. Every single one of those is a Pixar quality image.
Yeah.
Now, how can we look forward another 10 years? And it's like, what when we talk about where's it going to go, it's how much photoreal can you actually get?
I think actually that just looking at photorealism as a standard, it's a waste of time, because people might change their taste. I feel like they've already changed their taste.
Yeah. So here's the way I've seen, say, the last 5 years, and the shift in styles, and the shift in what I suppose the methodology. And I find it very interesting publishing this magazine, because there's a lot of repeating sort of language that the studios are using. I was like, you're still acting like a service company. You're still acting like a service sector, and you're not acting like artists. You're not taking ownership for you're subservient to a paying customer or client. You're not.
But that's because for many, the road to open a business that it's based on a service, it's a lot shorter, faster, and easier to adopt as a road to become a product maker.
But you'll never get respected. Of course.
I'm totally with you. The thing is that sometimes it's really hard to make people understand.
But who do you have
takes?
Who do you have to make understand apart from yourself? But maybe commercial art.
But maybe some people are fine with that, though, Nigel. You know what I mean? Some people are fine with just selling the images, and that's what they do. They make money selling the images, and that's it.
And all of us do that for a living. But back to Fabio's point of, in 10 years' time, where do I see the industry when that Jeff has talked about AI, talked about machine learning coming along, that we look at what's happening with programs such as Unreal or Revit, and giving the power back to the designers to actually do the visualization. Now, if you're just a service, like the print bureau or the graphic design team, then what are you really offering? And it's just, if the architect and designers, many of whom are working in the industry,
prayers or something.
Where's that coming from?
It struck me. It struck me like. Oh, sorry, I have a muezzin singing from outside.
The prayers, yeah.
I live in an Arab area of Tel Aviv.
I love that.
After 3 years, you kind of like get like I don't hear it anymore.
Yeah, okay.
Like you were asking me, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I was like, "All right."
We just have helicopters buzzing us.
You know, a couple of days ago, I read that Olympus, you know, the company that makes photography camera companies, yes, they're shutting down the division that makes cameras. And people were like, "Oh my God, this is terrible. This is such a bad news. Such a big company, you know, they're a historical company." And, you know, people react emotionally to this kind of stuff. But the reality of the thing is that a business is a business. If you are in a position with this business where you're hemorrhaging money, where you're not moving, where you're not evolving, where the brand has done something wrong and went down a path where it cannot be recovered, you still have to consider it as a business. And I think that in the field of architectural visualization, instead of having people thinking actively what their next steps should be, there are just people that are trying to squeeze their animals as much as they can until the end, and they don't really have an idea for what they should be doing next. And I think that this is like typical in creative industries where people just put all of their eggs in one basket. And I say that because I know that the owners of big companies, they have their money split in many other activities, and they have money coming from things that are not even remotely connected to archivists. Why do they do that? Because they don't like archivists? No, it's because whatever it is that you're doing, you're running a business. And a business very often cannot stand on one single leg. You need to have more legs to it. And so to me, it's very... Sorry. I went on a run. On a run.
I was going to say you're starting to give us a lecture. A Fabio lecture.
I don't want to do that. That's the last goal.
That I think any and every industry needs to reinvent itself continually, and it's about time this industry reinvented itself to something else. It's that so having been in it for 30 years and not really seeing much change over that time. So when I talk at universities and stuff, and I talk about the succession every 10 years, not only of the style or just the incredible work, but of people. So people who are now coming through, and maybe if there's the one person who's listening, that maybe they're at university or they're a student, and that their work's going to be kick-ass. They're going to be the next, like name a famous studio in 10 years' time. And it's just natural.
It's true.
So when we were top of our game for a while in London, and there were 5 of us constantly competing for the work, and I came to that realization that we can only be at that stage I didn't manage to do what some of the more established or other companies have done to grow into bigger brands and bring in younger business partners and regenerate that way, a bit like Doctor Who. We were a husband and wife team who Michelle, she looked after all the sort of accounts and admin side, and myself the creative, and we were on that journey, if you like, to try and build a succession plan when it all went horribly wrong for us. But that's probably a different story. And that goes back to your original question of Netflix or HBO. And I was hesitant because we'd been working for 15 years in television, and it was Netflix that killed my company.
Oh no.
Yeah, I heard the story.
And that's why I paused. because not directly, but because and this is a nice sort of segue into the, if you like, the analog to the digital days with music, with every form of technology or form of business, it's become digital. Now, television, when I got into it, it was still analog, and all of our production companies we worked with, that we specialized in broadcast visual effects. We did a lot of architectural shows, we did a lot of city builds, all of that stuff. Now in London, not a single visual effects company wanted to go near broadcasts. There's no money in it. They thought, this is a complete, there's no way we're going to touch that.
So I read an article. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to wrap that up with, along came House of Cards, and we were all like, oh, that's quite a good show. And then before you know it, like a tidal wave, the pay-per-view, the Netflix and Amazons just have swept broadcast, meaning that it just finished.
Yeah, go ahead.
One last thing. Basically meaning that after spending 15 years building a loyal customer base, and I had also built up a great team, we got killed off by the following year when I started talking to my TV producers, saying, hey, look, what are we doing this year? And they all turned around to me and said that Netflix had commissioned the next season of that show, and they were stipulating that they had to work with the big studios in Soho. And at the time I said, well, they don't have TV departments. And they said, well, they're opening them up. And that was the end of our business. Killed it.
Yeah.
After 20 years.
I think that, nobody saw that coming. That's a little bit the issue, Like Netflix, they took a bet with the creative market that no other companies were taking. They were like, okay, you're able to do the effects for this show for 50 grand, and you're a young studio of 3 people, we'll give you the job. And all of a sudden, the budgets of millions were slashed down to...
right now. I'm on a live.
Jason is having a family situation.
It's all right.
I lost my train of thought. But anyway,
the thing it wasn't the budget. It was the opposite. That for us, what happened, and it still happens now, that where you've got these huge subscribed services, they spend 10 times what they used to spend on which is why it's suddenly they swamped. And what our budgets may have been $250,000 per for a show, that went up to 4 million. And so,
wait a minute, you're saying that Netflix is spending more money than Hollywood?
They spend 4 to 10 million on visual effects per episode. And it depends on what show it is.
Because I remember reading an article saying how Netflix, by giving space to young talents and young upcoming studios, they were able to really bring quality shows for very little money. And the problem that they defeated, that they sort of like found a solution to, is that Hollywood was very much rigged in terms of what was getting produced. When actually Netflix said, hey, you know what? We're just gonna buy everything that we can afford, put it on the streaming service, and see what sticks.
So Amazon is spending over $1 billion on the new Lord of the Rings TV show in New Zealand.
It's crazy.
I mean, you just think of the numbers involved in this. These are huge numbers, and that is all designed around the analytics. The way when they looked at how that would actually pay off, they look at the viewing figures because they know who's watching. Don't Amazon own Walmart now? And so
I don't think so.
Well, But they own some form of shopping
Yeah.
side of it. So they can
I think so. Yeah, they do.
look at people's shopping habits of like, well, you're going to stay at home and watch this show of ours. We know what sort of food you want.
Well,
it's this whole
data is... The thing with Netflix also is the same, and it's a little bit unfortunate because what they're doing is they're watching the data. It's all about data, like watching habits and everything else, and that's how all the shows are getting created based on the data they've gotten, which is actually kind of a bad thing because the creativity is gone anymore. Because what they're doing is they're looking, okay, what do people like to watch? They like to watch, I don't know, specific types of shows, and then they'll just keep making those kind of shows because they know that people will watch those. Yeah, I mean, I guess network TV worked the same way, but at least you had this idea of a pilot. Somebody would put something out, then they would see if it worked or not. Maybe it didn't work. It was on for one season or 3 episodes or something. Well, Netflix won't do that because what they do, they look at all the data and then they just make the same stuff that they know people will watch, and you're kind of captive anyway, you know.
But it doesn't have to be television. That happens in art viz as well. And
yeah,
you'll find that 90% of people will all be churning out the same work, and they'll all be competing for the same projects. And so if you're in that hemisphere that we were for a while, and that's where you get beaten down by clients. You get some clients who just shop around. They'll contact you, go, how much for, if you're selling your service on a per image basis, then therefore Fabio's going to do it for €1,000. I'm going to come back to you and say, look, the other guy can do it for 700. What can you do it for? And I'm going to beat everyone down until I find a cost alike.
Yes.
Shouldn't do it for that.
This is a depressing topic, but and one that you can't avoid. I mean, it's totally true. But you have to figure out what your value is yourself, and then you stick with it. I think that's the main.
Ask me another question.
No, okay, Nigel. I wanted to say that we've been talking for an hour, which is usually where we wrap up. But I do want to bring up one other thing that you talked. Like to end this show, I want to bring up one other thing that you told us, which I thought was really a super interesting little fact about you. Who was it? Your great grandfather, who did this? The sold the lion. So I'm gonna show a real quick. Go ahead and tell us the story. Your great grandfather sold the lion to MGM, the first lion. I'm gonna show this on the screen right now. The video.
Bring up old Slats. Oh, you got a video.
I gotta find a video of Slats. Yeah.
So let me paint the picture here. So when my wife and I decided that we were going to stay in the UK, this is back in '94 now, I had to apply for my Irish passport. And of course, we didn't have my grandfather's death certificate. So that had to be got from Dublin. And so it took a while to come back. But when it came back, I got this big certificate that said, Francis Hunt, born Dublin Zoo, and sex female. And so my grandfather was born a woman in Dublin Zoo. And so, of course, they're talking to my parents about it. My great grandfather was the zookeeper there for quite some time, and it was my grandfather who, shortly before the First World War, thought, I'm getting out of Ireland. I'm going to jump on a boat and sail to New Zealand and make a new life for myself. But as we've dug into the whole sort of Irish ancestry, and especially around Dublin Zoo, we discovered that at the time, my great-grandfather, being the zookeeper, that MGM were looking for a mascot. And there were 2 zoos in the world. There was Paris Zoo and there was Dublin Zoo. And they chose Slats, who you're going to show in a second.
I showed it already, yeah.
But you did, sorry.
Yeah.
I can't see what you're showing.
Yeah, I know.
So the thing about Slats was that Slats was the only lion that just sat there idly and didn't say anything. Now, as your viewers can probably tell, that hasn't rubbed off on any of my great-grandfather's descendants, who we can't shut up.
Well, the funny thing is after you showed me that, I went on this like weird deep dive into like looking at all the MGM lions throughout the years. This is the crazy thing about YouTube. You start if you get started, you can't stop really. It's like that's about it just takes you down this thing.
It's a rabbit hole.
And of course,
yeah,
at the time when Slats was that lion, it was silent films anyway, so he didn't growl because there was no sound. I was like, why is there no sound on this? And then I realized it was silent films. So I mean, but man, that's a crazy story. I mean, it's so funny. It's like a very interesting thing. But Nigel,
this is the beautiful thing about Nigel is that every time that I talk to him, there is something that comes out of nowhere. It's like, yeah, by the way, I'm the great grandson of Houdini. What the fuck?
And now we're going to make him disappear.
You could wrap me up now. I have no problem continuing to talk.
Oh, we have already stopped the stream.
No.
Oh, you have?
No.
No? Well, let me say goodbye to everyone.
Yeah, you get to say goodbye. So, but Nigel, I want to say thank you again for joining us. It's been really great. I always love talking to you, and I hope that it was fun for everyone to watch. us talk together. And Fabio.
Well,
also
you're
thinks...
on out.
Go ahead.
We'll be talking next Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly.
Another one of those 3DS London shows.
Yeah, I look forward to that. That's also fun. And yeah, everybody who's watching also, check that out next Wednesday. It's on the 3DS London or 3DS. What's the YouTube channel?
3DS Meetup.
3DS Meetup.
3DS Meetups. Yeah.
So join us for that
also,
too.
If you don't have anything to do after this, I think the Mike Golden is having a show also.
All right.
You can go
check that out.
The Droki YouTube channel. He's for sure doing something. He's been doing something for like 70 days in a row, or I don't know, something ridiculous amount.
Brilliant.
But thanks again, Nigel.
Look, I would just like to say thank you for inviting me, and to anyone who has tuned in, thank you. Sorry, we probably went off on a tangent and you didn't learn anything about architectural visualization or the background, but isn't that what this is all about? It's just a chat, right?
There is nothing to learn.
And
There's nothing to learn. Thanks.
I had a lot of fun.
If you want to learn something, just go get a tutorial or something,
Yeah, that's another show, a different topic. Maybe we do that another time, an actual show where you learn something.
Can I just plug that the magazine that I've been working on for 4 months comes out on Monday?
Awesome.
So
we'll put a link we'll put a link whenever you post it. We'll put a link in this video description as well. So when people check the video later, they can see that as well. But Nigel, thanks a lot. Fabio, thank you for also, for doing
always a pleasure, man.
It's always great. And we will see you guys later. Nigel, hang on and we'll say bye to you properly. But thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay.